Screw you. Oh yeah. Well, screw you, too, I shouted, sending an egg hurtling through the air. It landed square between Biff's eyeballs with a satisfying splat. You're gonna pay for that, you little punk. Just wait till I get my hands on you. I didn't even listen to what Biff had to say. I unloaded on him, releasing a barrage of Yoki fury onto my unsuspecting victim. He couldn't get another word in. Once I was out of ammo, I grinned at the runny wide receiver, dropped my empty carton, and bolted. Biff was still wiping egg whites from his eyes as I disappeared around the corner. Okay, I guess I'd better explain myself before I get cancelled, huh? Before the incident, I liked to think of myself as a Robin Hood of sorts. There were the bullies, the victims, and then there was me. I would put the bullies in their place. I was the one who all the defenseless kids would turn to for help. The way I saw it, guys like Biff deserved to take a carton of eggs to the dome. He was a jock, which automatically made him a douchebag. Right, I have since come to the conclusion that I have royally screwed up in my assessment of a large percentage of the student body. As it turns out, the biggest asshole in all of this was me. But you know what they say, hindsight is always 20/20. I snickered to myself as I strolled down the sidewalk, cooking up my next act of mischief. When it happened, a bony shoulder collided with my chest, knocking the wind out of me. Ugh, watch where you're going, pipsqueak, I hissed, glaring at the boy sitting on the ground before me. A Nintendo Switch had clattered to the ground beside him. The screen was completely shattered. Though jet black bangs obscured the boy's eyes from view, I could tell that he was beginning to cry. A pang of sympathy shot through my chest like a lightning bolt. I shouldn't have lashed out at him like that. Look man, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have gone off on you. You just caught me off guard. Here, let me help you up, I said, extending a hand. He instantly swatted it away. Go screw yourself, the boy muttered, cradling his broken gaming device. Excuse me, I didn't quite catch that. I could have sworn that I heard you tell me to go screw myself, but that can't be right. I've gotta be hearing things. You heard me. I said go, screw yourself, he retorted, meeting my gaze. I could see fire behind his teary pupils. Seriously, you weren't watching where you were going either. It's not my fault that you weren't paying attention to your surroundings. My new buddy picked himself up off the ground and glowered up at me with the most hateful stare I have ever seen in my entire life. I could practically feel the rage oozing from every pore in his body. Needless to say, he was pissed. You're gonna pay for this. Do you know how long it took me to save up enough money for that thing? Years. I've had this Switch for 4 days. All that time and money just for you to come along and screw it all up. I'm not having that stuff, he spat, jabbing a finger inches from my face. At that moment, it felt as if a switch had been flipped. I didn't care that he'd broken his precious gaming console anymore. I wasn't going to let some random kid guilt me into paying for something just because he didn't want to take accountability for his actions. No one talks to me like that and gets away with it. I stuffed my hands into my pockets, searching for anything I could use in retaliation. A wide grin inched across my face when my fingers grazed a solid object. In one swift motion, I splattered the spare egg I'd been saving onto the boy's head, ruffling his hair to ensure that it really got down in there. The look on his face was priceless. He was so stunned that he didn't have time to get a word in before I raced down the street. I glanced back only once between giggles. He wasn't following me. I watched as he wiped his head, somberly staring down at the ruined Nintendo. I didn't feel one inkling of remorse, but now I'm terrified of the repercussions. Sup, bitch, Carter snarled as I made my way inside. I pursed my lips. I had really been hoping that he wouldn't be home. Screw off, dude. I've had a long day, I said, trying to brush past him. To my immense dismay, he caught my arm before I could leave. Well, it's about to get a whole lot longer, he replied, flashing me a disgusting grin. I gulped, mustering every ounce of courage I had. I'm tired of your stuff, farter. You think you can do whatever you want just because you're bigger than me. Newsflash, I'm done, I hissed, flinging his hand off of me. You're done when I say you're done, but munch. And I say, Carter pondered his next move for a moment. It was taking him a frightening amount of time. Thinking wasn't his strong suit. His eyes suddenly lit up. My heart dropped into my stomach, and I frowned. I knew that look. It's toilet time. All the color drained from my face. Please, not that. Anything but that. Too late. My mind's made up, Carter said, putting me in a headlock and leading me to the bathroom. Carter vehemently shook his head, placing a meaty hand over my mouth to shut me up. I bit his finger hard. He released me, giving me a chance to shout for help. Ma'am. Carter scowled at me before slinking away. You win this round, turd face. but you'd better watch your back. I'm gonna mess you up the first chance I get. Carter, leave your brother alone. Don't make me come down there, Mom shouted from upstairs. Yes, ma'am, he replied, disappearing into his room, but not without flipping me the bird first. Of course, I breathed an audible sigh of relief, slumping down against the wall. I was extremely grateful for my mother. If it wasn't for her, who knows what kind of ungodly war crimes Carter would have subjected me to. He really was an ass. The next day, I plopped into my seat with less than a minute to spare. I was out of breath from sprinting all the way to school. If I was tardy one more time, I'd find myself in detention, and that did not sound appealing. As I unpacked my bag, I noticed something lying on my desk. It was a photograph. I cautiously flipped it over, expecting to find some incriminating image of me doing God knows what to an unsuspecting douchebag. What I saw still gives me chills to this day. It was a picture of my house. It appeared to have been taken at night. From across the street, beads of sweat began to form atop my brow. With how many people I'd messed with, I had no earthly idea who the culprit could be. I flipped the photograph over, desperately searching for any clue as to who had left it there. There was faint writing on the back, in addition to my name and home address. There was a note. Anthony Hopkins, this is your only warning. Leave the money to repair my Nintendo Switch behind the school's dumpster by 5 p.m. sharp, or I will take action. Have the worst day possible. Logan. My blood began to boil. The freak from the day before. That creepy little bastard was trying to threaten me. Who the hell did he think he was? I was fuming. As you can imagine, I wasn't going to take his notes seriously. He'd managed to find my house, so what? He'd probably looked up my info on one of those shady subscription services. I was tempted to try and find his house and TP it overnight, but then I got an even better idea. Logan wanted me to leave the money behind the dumpster. I had no intention of doing that, but I was going to leave him something. I grinned maliciously as I retrieved Logan's gift from my locker at the end of the school day. I was going to teach that kid a lesson. Nobody messes with Anthony Hopkins. I had to stifle my giggles as I placed the fart bomb discreetly behind the big blue dumpster. I'd rigged it to where the slightest jiggle would cause a massive stink cloud to explode in the face of whoever was unfortunate enough to discover my little trap. Honestly, I was impressed with my own ingenuity. I'm obviously not the brightest crayon in the box, so that took a lot of brain power. I had a smug grin plastered across my face the entire walk home. Upon arriving, I confidently strolled into the kitchen to find Mom cooking dinner. Meatloaf night, not my favorite, but I wasn't going to complain. I would eat a dead rat if it meant Mom was happy. Hey kiddo, she said as I tossed my backpack aside. Hey Mom, dinner smells amazing. Is Carter here? I replied, glancing down at the ground. Well, thank you, sweetheart. No, your brother is spending the night at Jimmy's house. It'll just be you and me, Mom smirked, before turning back to the pot of green beans simmering on the stove. I released the breath that I hadn't known I'd been holding. It felt as if a weight had been lifted. Every day that I didn't have to deal with Carter was cause for celebration. Cool, I said, heading upstairs. Thanks for making dinner. I'll be back down in a few minutes. Mom smiled at me as I disappeared from view. I didn't deserve such kindness. The remainder of the night was relatively mundane. Mom and I ate dinner and watched a low-budget comedy film on Netflix before turning in for the night. I didn't have many friends due to my antics, but I don't mind it much. Unlike most kids my age, I have no qualms about spending my weekends watching trashy movies with my mother. Maybe that's because she's one of the only people who truly cares about me. I'm not really sure. After spending way too much time doom scrolling on Reddit, I finally decided to hit the hay, with the knowledge that I'd exacted my revenge, and that I didn't have to worry about my brother dunking my head in the toilet. I fell right to sleep. I awoke at some point in the middle of the night. I groggily rubbed my eyes and glanced at the alarm clock on my bedside table. 3:03 in the morning. Strange. I tried my best to drift back to sleep, but some abominable smell had assaulted my nostrils. It was faint, but pungent. In my sleep-deprived state, my first thought was that Carter had managed to soil the bed. I rolled onto my side, my curiosity satiated, and quickly fell back to sleep. I stretched my arms above my head and yawned. This time, I'd woken up at a reasonable hour. I shuffled out of my room and headed downstairs for breakfast. My brows furrowed as I entered the kitchen. Someone had knocked a few plastic cups onto the ground, and the back door was hanging wide open. "Ma'am, Carter," I yelled, hoping that one of them could offer some sort of explanation. I received no response. I darted to Mom's room, praying that my intuition was wrong. My blood ran cold when I laid eyes upon the scene before me. Mom's room was a wreck. It appeared as if a struggle had taken place. Pictures were scattered about the floor. All the trinkets on Mom's nightstand had been strewn across the carpet. Blankets and pillows were haphazardly tossed everywhere. The worst of all, there was a bloody streak splattered across the wall. No, this can't be happening. Why would somebody do this? Mom never hurt anyone. I suddenly thought to check my phone. Maybe Mom had left me some sort of message. I needed to at least try to call her to see if she was okay. I bolted upstairs in record time and retrieved my iPhone. I am still downright horrified at what awaited me. I had received a text message from an unknown number. My eyes grew wide as dinner plates. With trembling hands, I hurriedly opened it. You had your chance, Anthony. I'm done playing around. You took something precious from me, so now I'm taking something precious from you. I want $5 grand. I'll offer if you don't comply. Put it behind the school's dumpster like I previously requested. And no funny business. No more stink bombs, and no cops. I'm watching you. If you so much as think about dialing 911, I'll be the first person to know. I'm looking forward to doing business with you. Tears began to well in the corners of my eyes. The message had come with an attachment. Dread swallowed me like a python as I motioned to open it. I already knew what it would contain. It was a photograph of my mother tied to a chair in some filthy-looking basement. She'd been blindfolded and gagged with a streak of blood coagulating on her cheek. She looked terrified. My heart absolutely shattered for her. I don't know what to do. I have $15 to my name. I don't want to risk calling the police in case Logan finds out. I'm posting this anonymously on an old laptop that I don't use so he won't suspect anything. Please, if anyone has any suggestions, help me. I just want Mom to come home.